Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name is Michael. I am a chaser, and today I am a soccer-playing soccer boy. I think for the first time in my life, I will be playing 2 days in a row, 2 soccer games. So usually I need this recovery period because I get really, really sore. Well, I have discovered through a tip from one of our listeners, actually, this incredible invention where basically I can help use this massage gun thing to recover muscles after a soccer game, and now I feel totally fine.
Wow.
I played last night. I'm going to play tonight. It's amazing.
Amazing.
I'm so excited, as you can tell.
My name's Don Marshall. I'm a big chubby guy living in sunny Hollywood, and today I am a sad, toothless, toothy boy. I cracked a tooth last night.
What?
Oh, no.
I have to wait until tomorrow to see my dentist.
Oh, no.
I am grouchy.
How are you speaking right now?
Because we got to do it. Life goes on. There's what else you can do. I took some ibuprofen, and I'm just trying to figure out how to find like what sort of soft foods I can eat today.
Oh, no.
My name is Dan Oliverio. I'm an author, public speaker, and official chubby chaser. And today, I don't know. I'm still fascinated by our previous conversation about land masses.
Oh, yeah. There was a whole 15-minute discussion about
Archipelagos, and my favorite, and my very favorite word, isthmus.
An isthmus for Christmas.
Oh, boy.
You're on.
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and today I'm a dungeony master boy.
Yes, you
I
are.
led my first game, not of Dungeons and Dragons, but of Monster of the Week.
Yeah, he did.
I'm the dungeon master now.
But anyway, we digress.
We got our own shenanigans.
We have
today.
a show to do.
Yeah, this is one of those days where last week we had a nice the cookie was happy and the cream filling was depressing. I want to say maybe it's the reverse today. It's an Oreo bummer to start you out.
Anything medical related is usually bummer.
And
Bummer
ties,
town,
this ties
population, everybody.
This ties to so much that we've talked about that it was almost like, do I really... Do we need, should I share this? But I think it's important. I think also just for, non-fat people, for allies, for people to share maybe with doctors in their life. Mm-hmm. It's an NBC story about, the headline is an ongoing nightmare. People with obesity face major obstacles when seeking medical care. And it specifically kind of goes into the case of Laura Baker, who had brain cancer and was unable to get a CT scan because of her size. And I've heard this story cited a lot by different fat activists when talking about medical bias. And I don't really know what to say other than just it's horrible. It's frustrating.
It comes in 2 forms. It comes in more than 2 forms. But the 2 that I'm put in mind of from this story is that there's the medical bias, which is we're not even going to give you a test because you're fat. That's our test. You flunked our fat test. That's your diagnosis. You're fat. So stop it. But if they get beyond that, then there's the more mechanical problem of finding a machine that will accommodate someone of size. So that can be a major challenge depending on the region you live in. Some people have had more luck with stand-up MRIs or lay-down MRIs. I know for me, when I was having a lot of stuff done with my shoulder, I don't fit in the MRI. They were always trying to if you lean over this way and if you bunch your, the pic image isn't coming out well because you're too scrunched in there. I know I'm scrunched in there. It's me. So I
can feel it.
My shoulders don't fit in the MRI. They're tiny. They're tiny little cigar tubes. So I don't know how anybody does.
Well, I mean, I was supposed to have a MRI done of my knee at one point, and they just couldn't accommodate me.
Well, but
there was no way to do it.
But can't they just put you in the other way and just put your knee in?
I don't know. I don't know why, but I think they said there was a weight limit to the machine.
Oh,
and I was above the weight limit.
In this case, that was the issue as well. Even though she did not exceed the weight limit, they still said, we can't accommodate you.
Yeah, well,
fat people lie all the time, Michael.
It was surprisingly low.
It's absolutely
the weight limit was surprisingly low
for the one that they told.
Yeah, it was it was 300.
Yeah, because it'll go up to 150 kilograms, and because that's the cheaper model. If you wanted to go up to 200 kilograms or 300 kilograms, you got to pay 3 or 4 times that price.
Oh, you
I might
mean
be making this
when
up
we
in
pay
my-
$20,000 for our medical care, that goes where exactly?
Yeah.
I might be
mean-
making this up in my head, but I seem to remember them saying like, well, we have this other facility you could go to that's a veterinary facility.
Yeah.
Like,
So the article talks about that, and I've heard people talk about it, but I've also heard like the places are like, yeah, I don't know why they sent you here. We don't scan humans.
A friend of mine, very good friend of mine, who's a super chub, he was told, and the technician was extremely apologetic, but didn't want to withhold the information. I mean, so the guy is like crawling out of his skin saying this, but he said, "You should try the zoo."
Yeah, I've heard that.
yeah,
I know somebody that had to do that. Yeah. I'm assuming, like, from what Trevor said, like, somebody might not know how to do that, but then I have heard the zoo story before.
Yep.
And clearly that's got to come from somewhere, right?
My first thought when Trevor said like, oh, sorry, we don't do humans here. Like, it's fine. My doctor doesn't see me as human anyway.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
But I mean, Don, you have the story about being told, like you not being able to get the MRI. I know I had to get an MRI, and I could not get an answer about. I'm like, I do not, and I needed the dye injection. I'm like, I am not letting you inject me until I know that this machine will accommodate me. And it was the biggest hassle in the world to find out that they were able to accommodate me, but it was like, oh, well, it'll probably be fine. I'm like, I want to know exactly what the weight limit is so that I know before you inject me with radioactive dye that I will be able to do this. Cause I'm like, if it's not going to work, I'm not going to,
yeah.
I'm not going to let you
That
inject me.
seems like a reasonable request.
And
to
it
be
was
honest.
and I was trying to make it easier on everyone, and I was getting such flack for it. It
Yeah.
was so frustrating.
It is the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
Like so one time I was going in for a procedure, right? And finding out in advance if your doctor is there is not something that you should have to do. But yeah, I went in, they injected me with like all the sedatives and all that stuff, and I'm lying naked on a table, and nurse comes up to me and hands me a phone, and I hear the doctor on the other side going like, yeah, there was a problem with scheduling. Do you mind if we reschedule this? I'm like, I'm about to pass out. You are fucking doing this right. I don't care where you are.
Holy shit.
I think he was on the golf course, and I'm not kidding because I heard people behind him.
Oh my God. Well, I will say this. I know somebody who is super chub sized, whatever that means, like very big, and had to get, I'm going to forget what kind of scan. I think it was an MRI, and there was most of the hospitals in the area did not have one that would accommodate him, but there was one specific hospital did have an MRI machine that he could fit into. So it's not impossible. Like, these things do exist. They're just less common.
They're less common and more expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're less common because they're more expensive.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for the patient, because you're not paying for the equipment per se, but you are paying for the availability of that equipment. I mean, we're lucky here in LA. We have a lot of choices.
Yeah.
But if you're in some other area, not necessarily.
Right. So, I mean, it's more of an awareness story.
Yeah. And I think
We're probably
also,
preaching to the choir, but I think it bears repeating.
But I think what Trevor did is the smart thing to do that we should all learn from is plan ahead.
Yeah.
Figure out what your concerns are in advance and make sure they're answered.
Well, as you have talked about before, this idea of self-advocacy, which is even worse when you're sick, which is even worse when you're scared. Because apparently to them, injecting you with radioactive dye ain't no thing.
Yeah.
But
It's probably fine, Trevor.
It knocked out my uncle's kidneys, but he was old.
Yeah, this is probably a bunch of other reasons for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now shut up.
But not all is dark in the world. Nicole Byer is getting her first stand-up special at Netflix.
Yay.
And they have a good track record. with
Yes.
comedy
So this is Nicole
specials.
Byer, who is the host of Nailed It,
Yes.
which is the first place I ever saw her. And boy, did I fall in love with her during that show.
I think so. It's actually I should say it's her first special, her first hour-long special, because I think she's been part of
Other specials.
like other specials, but this is just all Nicole Byer.
I'll buy her all the time.
Yes, love to hear it, love to see it. I'm very excited she's just so funny. I love her.
Yeah. It's being filmed in, September 5th. So presumably it'll take a couple months to put it together. But I would think by the end of this year, we would get to see that.
Oh,
Very exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, Netflix does one thing well: content.
They produce.
God damn, do they put out a lot of stand-up?
I mean, Michael, they might have it edited before she does the show.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know if they shoot it live and they have a live. I don't know. Maybe they'll put it out faster than that. I would be very.
They're gonna film it like football. It's gonna be a live broadcast.
Everything's baked in. And rolling right along.
Yay!
It's Fat Watch.
I knew it.
It's here again every week, every episode. It's 2021, and we have more joy. It's a weird double inside out Oreo. Maybe an Oreo Mobius strip.
It is both cookie and cream on both sides.
Who taught you that?
Dan actually made me a bunch of paper Mobius strips one time.
Oh,
Nerd.
Because I love him.
But this story is actually it's from NPR and it's older, but I've been seeing it pop back up in other places. There is a tattoo artist named Carrie Metz. I'll try to get this right. Caporuso, who has been doing these roll flower tattoos, celebrating fat bodies, and she talks about in the interview, basically sitting down and looking in the mirror at her fat body and thinking about tattoos and ways to accentuate her body and accentuate the rolls.
And it's really creative because she does exactly that. She basically, the ones in the picture, and I don't know if they do them more than just on the back, but the ones in the article basically take sort of the way that, a fat person's back would naturally fold and roll, like in the sort of lower back, mid back region, and takes those rolls and tattoos flowers and sort of intricate, delicate shapes into it to incorporate the shape basically into the stem of the flower. And it looks really beautiful because you get shading and shadow right where that happens that adds to the actual form, like the art of the tattoo, and makes it more than just ink on skin. It's really pretty.
That's great.
I like it because I was listening to this speaker and it was fat related, but it was like very negative and very self-loathing. And he talked about how he had these tattoos all over his body, but it was like solid black on his arms and shoulders, chest, and like basically his entire torso completely like blacked out in ink. And he talked about how he loved it because he's like, I can finally take off my shirt at the pool.
Oh my God.
Because it's like, because it covered up his body.
Interesting.
And I like that this is like the complete inverse of that. Because that's really always stuck with me. And like, I don't know, that was a very unpleasant thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Wow.
Like he just tattooed his clothing right onto his body.
Yep.
Wait, I'm sorry. His clothing?
Well, because it was basically like he's always wearing a shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's black, so I guess in theory it's sort of.
You're always going to look
Very
like
slimming.
Steve. You're always
Black
going to
is
look like
slimming.
Steve Jobs.
Was there a turtleneck tattooed as well?
No. But I like the idea of tattoos as kind of pieces. I don't want to say accentuating flaws, but accentuating part of the body that people might normally want to cover up or draw attention away from. Like there's a lot of tattoo artists that do work with scars, but like incorporating the way the scar tissue is different normally than skin.
Yeah. I like that too because it shows a certain, like there is bravery to that and displaying this part of yourself as opposed to, like Trevor was saying, covering it up or just ignoring it entirely.
Well, and I think it's a real triumph of empowerment because you've not only given up trying to hide it, and you're not celebrating it like with arrows and neon is like, look at this, which is sort of that worst aspect of I mean, one of the reasons we have body neutrality is because body positivity can be a little cloying. Like, it's so beautiful. Like, okay, calm down.
Yeah.
And so what I like about this is it's actually using a physical feature that is not common to everyone and using it as the basis of something artistic. It may, it doesn't hide it, but it also doesn't have arrows going towards it. You know, it's creating something new with it.
Yeah.
It reminds me a bit of the Trevor, you'll know this, where they the Japanese pottery tradition of when something is cracked, they fill it with gold. Do people know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So like the idea is that you want to highlight the beauty of what's happened to it rather than try to erase the flaw, which is never going to happen. If you think of like a porcelain bowl, you're never going to erase the crack.
Right.
But what you can do is fill that crack with gold and create something beautiful out of this new form.
Nice.
I like that philosophy.
Yeah. Well, in that vein, kind of, we can transition. We can take the flaws of. We're back on fat suits again, people.
Yeah.
So
Goddamn fat suit.
It's fat suit.
aren't we? And which Don was saying, like, aren't we past this?
No, we're
Haven't we?
so
No,
not.
we're not.
It's the big fat gay fat suit.
But we're gonna fill it in with gold.
Yes. So I was hesitant because there's three projects we're going to be talking about, and I kept seeing them come up, and I was like, are we really? I know we talk a lot about fat suits. The person trapped in their car is screaming at us like again with the fat suits still, and like, yes, I'm with you. And we were trying to think of a way to talk about this and package it and like put a spin on it because we're also sick of fat suits too. Listener,
Dear listener. So the three
Can I just say, I feel like every time the fat suit shows up is for fat people what Asian people are expecting whenever we hear a gong on a show.
oh God.
It's the exact same thing. It's like, oh, here we go. All right, brace yourself.
So the three properties we're talking about. One is the movie House of Gucci, which that looks good outside of the fact that apparently they felt the need to put Jared Leto playing Paolo Gucci in a fat suit, which Trevor was saying
It's
the
even,
guy's
it's
not
even
even
more remarkable
character's
because
not-
Paolo Gucci is not fat.
What the what? It's
and just I would say an absurd level of prosthetics.
a lot of process. I mean, I didn't recognize him. I had to look at your list to see that was Jared Leto playing
Which,
him.
like, at that point, why cast? I mean, I get, like, because Jared Leto, and Jared Leto can win an award for his portrayal.
Well, and I think it's beyond that too. Then you also get to have all the free publicity of like, and he doesn't even look like Jared Leto. Isn't that amazing? And we can have 65 articles about that.
yeah.
And maybe our podcast.
Well, maybe that legit is part of it. It's part of the advertising.
No, it's because when you've got these mega movies, you're trying to get all the free stuff you can.
Yeah.
And one way to create publicity that is not paying for it is you create a controversy. It doesn't even matter if the controversy is necessary or true, but if you create a controversy, if you can get somebody writing about it, it's free press.
Yeah. So the other one is American Crime Story Impeachment.
With Sarah Paulson, who I love. I love Sarah Paulson. She is a tour de force.
nothing against her ever.
But they put her in a fat suit to play Linda Tripp, which, once again, like, and also a lot of prosthetics.
The story, it's about Bill Clinton being impeached for...
We might need to remind some listeners
Yes.
that Linda Tripp was the person who convinced Monica Lewinsky to save the dress and to go on this political adventure that became the impeachment.
Yes.
Right. And the show, to anyone wondering, is also apparently produced by, or executive produced by Monica Lewinsky.
Yes.
So she has some ownership over it. But the point is that Sarah Paulson is in a fat suit to play Linda Tripp.
Because apparently there are no fat actresses in Hollywood. Never seen one. Not a one.
Yeah.
With this one, I'll give them an ounce of credibility simply because it is an anthology show where they always use the same cast.
I'm not
But
buying that.
I'll give them an inch on this one.
If it's an anthology show, maybe they should have picked a different subject that they could have
Or
cast.
maybe have a
I would
fat actor
suggest-
in their stable that they could...
That's what I go
Yeah.
to. I would suggest if you're doing an anthology series, a large amount of the population is fat. Cast at least one fat person to play some of the fat people.
And we
I-
have some
but I think-
suggestions.
Sarah Paulson, I think, is really the only person returning. Like, they do have all these other
really?
actors coming in. It's not.
Oh, I thought they were doing the same thing that they did with American Horror Story. Oh, okay.
Because this is what American Crime Story,
Yes.
the anthology,
Which is also produced by who's the guy? Who's the
Ryan
guy?
Murphy.
Ryan Murphy.
Yeah, Ryan Murphy.
Yeah. And the final thing we're going to talk about is Dune, which I feel like we've probably talked about at some point just because
it
it's
came
like
up briefly in pop culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is the one I'm really angry about.
as Stellan Skarsgård as Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah.
Such a poor choice. Such a poor
And
choice.
it, once again, in a fat
Famously
suit.
very, very fat character. So the spin that we're taking is we are going to recast these movies and shows.
Yes.
We are going to, we've put together a little list of actors and actresses that we think could be really good in these roles. And we're going to go around and talk about who we think would be best to play these parts because frankly, we're all inexplicably convinced that a fat actor could actually play these parts well. I can't imagine why.
I've seen a lot of fat actors play fat very well.
Well,
It's just so hard when you get pigeonholed. Yeah.
I know. But clearly there's some good options out there. And I think we should dive right in. Let's start with House of Gucci because I think this is just the most ridiculous one of the three. Like, the character's not fat, so let's start with that.
Yeah, but
if
we're
we
gonna-
have a fat actor playing this role, they decided the character was fat in the movie, so we'll accept that fiction. Do we want to go through the actors? We kind of have the short list that we have first.
No, I think we just pitch who we want.
Okay. All right. Go for
Because
it.
otherwise, why bring them up?
Yeah.
I thought that David Harbour, and because Paolo Gucci isn't fat, I thought the version of David Harbour that also isn't fat.
Yeah.
Now
he
wait a
actually-
second.
But he actually looks that he could pass for Paolo Gucci.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the beginning of Black Widow, that David Harbour, that looks like that actually could pass for Paolo Gucci. That would be my vote.
Interesting. Okay, I can see it. I the only reason I sort of skipped over David Harbour was purely because like he's got a lot of stuff going on. Like I don't feel
Oh,
like
he doesn't
really
need this.
needs
Yeah,
the
No.
role.
no, absolutely not.
And I was looking for somebody who I thought would do a really good job and who could use another break. So my selection is an actor named Cameron Britton who played what's the character's name or the real person? He played Ed Kemper, serial
Yes.
killer Ed Kemper in Mindhunters, which is a David Fincher show about serial killers. And all of the buzz after that show came out, like a lot of the advertising around that show and like clips that came out were him playing that role and playing it so uncannily. And I actually watched a comparison. I think it was an acting coach who was comparing like the real Ed Kemper versus Cameron Britton's interpretation. He was like, this is somebody who is not doing a mimicry. He's not trying to perfectly mime Ed Kemper. He is embodying the role. And he is taking the role on so fully that you believe him and he's evoking the person as opposed to just mimicking the person.
I agree with that
It's a
completely.
little thing we like to call acting.
Acting, sure. But you do see like a lot
No,
of
you're
actors
you're
will
totally
only
right.
get
Yeah.
the superficial right and you don't quite believe him. And so
Or
I
like
think,
in an SNL parody, you get the surface impression. Yeah.
Sure. And in this sense, because he's played a real life person before, it's a dramatic role. I think he would have done a fantastic job with that.
And he was terrifying. And the next thing I saw him in was Umbrella Academy. And complete transformation. Did not recognize him until my roommate told me, oh, it's that guy. Had no idea.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. And he's not, I think his weight fluctuates a fair amount. So like he's fatter. I think in Mindhunters, he's heavier than he is currently. So I think somewhere in that range, I think he could easily slot. And clearly they made the choice to make the character fat in this movie.
Which I don't get at all.
So we'll just stick with that fiction and say if it's a fat character, this is the fat actor we think would do it. And I
that's
think
fair.
he would do a fantastic job.
I think Nick Offerman could be an interesting
Interesting.
choice. And
I don't think I've seen him play a serious role.
Remind people who Nick Offerman
Nick
is.
Offerman,
Parks and Rec.
Parks and
famously.
Rec.
He plays Ron Swanson.
Or
Megan
or-
Mullaley's husband.
Megan Mullaley's husband, or Dev. If you've seen Devs, he plays the big CEO.
yes.
And he also has his show that I'm forgetting the name of, but it's a carpentry show that he co-hosts with
Amy Poehler.
Amy Poehler.
I haven't seen Devs, so I don't know.
He's amazing in it.
I feel like there's so much there with him. And I think comedians, especially comedic actors, especially who frequently get these roles, do have an edge to them that they don't get to explore. And I would love to see Nick Offerman be able to do that.
I think he definitely gets it in Devs. I mean, I've seen before Nick Offerman blew up on television. I knew him from stage plays in Los Angeles because I'd gone to see him.
Oh, interesting.
So I've seen him in a lot of really cool and edgy stuff. And then like all of a sudden he becomes this comedian guy on Parks and Rec, which is like confusing to me.
Oh, that's fascinating. So
But-
you have the total opposite.
Yeah, I have the opposite impression because I don't know him as a comedian. I know him as a really serious, deep, intense actor
Okay. All right.
who, guess what, can also do comedy.
Like, what a shock. Well, I think the hallmark of his comedy is that he's so deadpan.
Yeah.
And he's fucking hilarious because he's so deadpan.
I'm actually with Trevor. I'd picked out Nick Offerman for pretty much the same reasons. I'd love to see him stretched into a more dramatic direction, which I haven't seen before. So, yep.
Cool. Any of these choices would have been better than Jared Leto. Can we start with that?
Yes.
Well, why is he in it? Why the hell is that man in this show? Yeah.
Maybe he does a really good Italian accent.
Yes,
I like the meatball.
Yes, I'm sure this forgotten boy from Louisiana can do a really good Italian accent. That's why they hired him.
All right. So scooting right on down to American Crime Story. This is Bill Clinton being impeached on TV once more.
Linda Tripp has a very distinctive look.
Oh my God,
very
she
distinctive.
does.
Yeah.
She does.
Very,
Yeah, and I remember her voice very specifically.
Yes.
'Cause-
And Linda Tripp is the real life person upon whom the role is based, which is being played by Sarah Paulson. I have a completely different idea for the role.
I really wonder if any of us picked the same part, because when I saw the actress I picked, I was like, holy crap, she looks just like her. Like this is perfect, but I don't want to go first. Somebody else go first.
I'll go first.
Dan, you go.
I thought Jennifer Coolidge.
Oh, interesting.
agree.
I thought Jennifer Coolidge would nail her both in the physical appearance and probably, I mean, I think like you guys were saying about Nick Offerman, I have only seen Jennifer Coolidge in kind of the offbeat comedic roles. If you're wondering who she is, I think of her mostly from Legally Blonde, where she plays the salon stylist who gets together with the UPS driver.
I want a hot dog real bad.
Yeah, what is it? The snatch and grab?
The bend and snap.
The bend and snap. So that's, I mean, that to me is when people say the name, that's the role I think of. She has done so much more than that. But I think because of her facial structure and because of her acting chops, I think she would be an ideal choice.
She's another one where, like Nick Offerman, where like I think she's a comic genius, but I don't think I've seen her in much dramatic stuff. And I would
Well,
like
she
to.
is now in something called
White Lotus.
White Lotus, which is just getting amazing
Yeah.
reviews.
But that's a comedy.
Is it?
It's a comedy.
Yeah. So I was thinking Jennifer Coolidge, but I didn't go with her. But I think she's such a tour de force, and I feel like I don't know if she could do this, because I just think of like I was thinking of an example, and it's like she is
You Hollywood exec, you can't think of her in this role. Come on.
well, no, it's like I think of her almost like In and Out, where it's like it's a very limited menu. Like we just get the same things of Jennifer Coolidge, but she does them so well that it's like, why would you cast her in anything else?
I think it's even more than that. She does it well to the point where it defines it.
Yes.
Michael is cracking up, and I need
I'm
to know-
sorry. This is so off topic, but Trevor said
Tour de
he said
force.
tour de first, and I was imagining a bunch of cats riding bikes through France. That's it. That's the whole bit. There's nothing else there.
All right.
So anyway, got that off my chest. So who did you pick, Trevor?
I went through a couple. Jennifer Coolidge, just because it's like she's really hot right now, and I would love to see her in something else. I actually I was torn between Miranda Hart, who I feel like has just a completely different physicality, but I feel like just her facial structure and her demeanor, and just even she's really tall. She just has, I think she could embody.
People who don't know who she is right away,
Yes.
Miranda Hart she was in the Melissa McCarthy movie Spy recently. She had her own show, Miranda, on
Yes.
BBC. She was on Call the Midwife, which is probably the most American
I just
show
thought
from.
she was way too young and pretty for this role.
And more recently,
she's
in
older
Emma.
now.
She's a little older now. More recently, she was also in Emma, which you might have seen her in, which is the movie.
oh wait,
I
I'm
think
confusing
you're-
you with somebody else.
Pride and
Yeah,
Prejudice.
I was
right? That's Pride and Prejudice. Just
I
to be
never
clear.
mind.
Was that-
I think you're thinking of who I went with, Joy Nash.
Yes.
You went with Joy Nash. Okay,
Yes.
so I went with Miranda Hart, just so you know.
Okay.
I also went with Miranda Hart.
Now I get it.
Ah, interesting.
Now I'm sticking with Jennifer.
No, and I think, I mean, just because, like, I feel the same way about Sarah Paulson, where it's like I feel like Sarah Paulson's too young. I feel like I want Joy Nash to have more work, and I want to see her in this role, and I want her to be part of the Ryan Murphy stable.
Interesting.
I would say something else though about this role, which and you touched on it before when you talked about Linda Tripp. Linda Tripp is a confection. Like if you look at photographs of her, this is a woman who is, I wouldn't go as far as to say Tammy Faye Baker, but she is very self-consciously putting a look on herself. Like she's not just showing up. Like there's a lot that's showing up with her that she has created. And I kind of like that with Jennifer Coolidge because Jennifer Coolidge is also known for those kinds of characters.
Interesting. Okay.
And having that unusual facial structure.
Yeah, I can
and
see
having
that.
the eyes.
Anyone
you're like, is that
playing
real
Linda
or is that-
Tripp would look like somebody was put in a costume and wig to play
Yeah.
Linda Tripp.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
even if you just made her look exactly
Linda
the
Tripp
same.
looks like she was.
Yeah,
put
Yes,
in
no,
a-
that's my point. Yeah.
She kind of reminds me of a bird.
Oh,
Bird, just because of she has kind of that.
See,
her
that's-
face has a sharpness, but then also the poofy hair, like the hair's the kind of poofed and feathered, and
That's why I thought Miranda Hart. I don't know. There's something
No,
about
I
their
get the,
faces.
I get the
that-
Miranda Hart
If
argument.
you put Miranda
yeah.
Hart in that giant fluffy wig,
Yes.
I
Would
think
work.
you just bam,
You
like
might get-
right
The only
there.
thing that worries me with her is I don't know if she does American accents. You know?
Any British actor can do an American accent. I feel like the other way
You just
around.
don't, no, you just don't hear the ones who can't.
and
Believe me, the British talk about this all the time.
I think even if she couldn't, I think it would work because of everything about Linda Tripp is just so
Affected.
constructed and bizarre. I think if it was, because like the one of the big problems with Sarah Paulson is like they put her in a fat suit. They did a great job with the prosthetics, but it's so clearly Sarah Paulson because Sarah Paulson has such a distinctive voice and manner of speaking. And Linda Tripp has the same thing, but it's not what Sarah Paulson's doing.
So you went, Don. You went with Joy.
I went Melissa Hart.
Joy Nash.
Miranda Hart.
Oh, you did. Oh, you agree with
Miranda
it.
Hart.
Hey, yeah. I haven't. I'll admit I haven't seen her in a lot, but when it came to, I mean, again, if we're trying to get somebody to match with a real life person, that was what came to mind for me. That
I agree.
worked.
Physically, she works, but knowing I have seen her in a fair amount of stuff. I adore this woman and would love to see her again. Like Nick Offerman, I'd love to see her stretch a little bit. It's interesting when we were talking about this, it really sort of when I was going through the list of actresses, it really underscored that like fat actresses really only seem to be able to break in through comedy.
Well,
yeah,
because
it is true. It is true.
There was almost no non-comedic choices.
well, break in. I mean, I'm so happy to see Melissa McCarthy defying that.
Yeah.
In now, I think at least 2 movies
And-
that I'm aware of.
God, I'm totally blanking on her
Nine
name.
Perfect Strangers.
No, Shrill.
Shrill.
Yeah,
Amy-
SNL. Adi Bryant.
Adi
There we
Bryant.
go.
Adi Bryant.
Yes. Now she's able to also, like Shrill. Obviously, I think you can make the argument that it is primarily a comedy, but plenty of very
It's a
poignant
dramedy.
dramatic scenes.
I would
Yeah, it's
say
a dramedy.
safely it's a dramedy.
Yeah, and she does a fantastic job with those scenes too.
Yeah.
Going back to Miranda Hart, she has such a distinct look where I feel like she doesn't get the opportunity
Yeah.
to be cast in things because of that. And I feel like this is the perfect opportunity because there's so much there that works. And I think
I'll give
because
you
of
that.
that,
I'll give you that.
as being a woman of a certain appearance in an industry where appearance is everything, I think she could really tap into that, as Dan was saying, the confection of Linda Tripp.
So our last movie, this is the big one, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Dune, Baron Harkonnen, which I, by the way, have not read or seen before. So I'm walking into this somewhat blind.
And I'm the
which I
other end
think
of the
is-
spectrum.
Yeah.
Like I've read
You've
it, I've
read
read the
it
sequels,
and
I've read the
watched the
prequels, I've
movie.
read
Can can we talk about the character safely?
We already have, so it's fine.
Okay.
Like I don't feel like Dune is, in my head, the way it's constructed is already so impenetrable that it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah. Spice something something
It's-
space
yeah.
something something.
Sandworms.
Just from a creative perspective, this is the fat suit I mind least, because the character's fatness is just an adjective to make it. Just an adjective to make them worse in people's minds.
Unfortunately, you are right.
It is the guy is he's a predator. He's a pedophilia, or he's a what do you call it? A pedophile. Thank you. English is
or
hard.
pedophile, as the Brits would say.
Pedophile. He's covered with warts and pus and like any negative thing you can think of is applied to this character.
So of course he's fat.
Well, naturally, he's also
the
fat.
fatness is like an afterthought to make him even worse in people's minds. So I don't mind,
And it's applied cosmetically.
yeah,
Like,
I
that's
don't really mind a fat actor saying like, you know what,
maybe.
Well, but to me, the whole point, I was reading this article on Jezebel about the fat suit. And it talks about that the whole point of the fat suit is we want to cast a celebrity who has an amazing body, but make the point that the character's physical body is a monster.
yeah.
Right.
So
So,
it's meant to
twisting
monstrous-
it that much further.
It's meant to monstrosize an attractive Hollywood body.
yeah.
And so from that perspective, I get your point.
Yeah.
I get your point. You're not wrong. But I want a fat actor in that role, goddammit. Now, Alexander Skarsgård is just the least interesting choice for that role. He's a great actor.
Right? It's Stellan Skarsgård.
The dad.
Stellan Skarsgård. I'm sorry,
Stellan.
not his son.
Alexander Skarsgård would be even more offensive.
Even more offensive. He could actually be his son, the Baron's son. No, but Stellan Skarsgård is a terrible choice, not because he's a bad actor. He's a wonderful actor. But there are a lot of wonderful actors you could have picked.
Yeah.
Sure.
I know exactly who I want in this role.
Who do you want in that
This
role?
was the one, you should go first again, because this is the one that I was the most indecisive on.
I was locked in right
There is
away.
only
Really?
one choice
Okay,
in this
I'm
role.
super curious.
Now we'll see if Don and I agree.
Well, should you guys go last then? Because mine's not going to be great. I don't think
Okay.
I have.
Oh, well, you go. Yeah, go.
So like I said, I was torn on this. I mean, we had a good list, and we're trying to have a different set of actors per category. So we didn't go with the first few. Of the options provided, and I couldn't think of a better one, I went with Russell Crowe.
It's
And
not a bad choice.
I think it's largely because I have no emotional investment in Russell Crowe as a person, so I don't mind seeing him play a despicable thing,
Caricature.
Like I don't mind. Like I wouldn't lose any attachment to who I think the actor is or isn't by having it. Like so with Russell Crowe, and he has, not that it necessarily matters that much, but he has put on a pretty considerable amount of weight in the last few years, and does physically, I think, lives in that world a lot more than he used to. I think in his earlier career, he was basically just a regular looking dude. And he's a phenomenal actor.
He is my second choice, Michael.
Okay. And I'm very looking forward to your first choice. I mean, he's a fantastic actor. I don't think he's done anything that I thought he was bad in, except for Les Mis, but that was largely because
that's not his fault.
that was his voice. And that he shouldn't have been cast.
He
just
should not have been
in
cast in that.
So anyway, I thought he would do a good job. I wasn't necessarily in love with the idea, but I'm curious what you guys have to say.
Trevor.
I included Guy Branum on the list because he has very strong feelings about this, and he has consistently been tweeting about it. But I went with Nick Frost.
Oh,
because
He was my second choice.
I've been seeing him more and more, and I feel like he's aging into more serious roles.
He is.
And we saw him as a villain in, is it The Nevers? I'm getting mixed up. The HBO
The Nevers.
show, The Nevers. And I liked seeing him as a villain. Like before I would feel like, oh, I don't really want to see him in this role. But after seeing him in The Nevers, I want to see him in more villainous roles.
Do you
All
want
right.
to go first or shall I go first?
I think, Don, you should go first.
Okay. I went with Vincent D'Onofrio for this one.
Oh, wow.
That's a good choice.
Not a bad choice at all.
I think he's perfect. And I think
There's a lot going there.
Shit, I should have
Yeah.
thought of that. That's a much better choice.
That's really good.
the
Damn it.
performance that he turned in as Kingpin was
Yeah.
Impeccable.
someone
No, you're
bringing
totally right.
a tremendous amount of charisma, a tremendous amount of fearfulness, intimidation from what was actually sort of a mundane script in a lot of ways for that character. He brought it out. He did amazing things with it. And I think the Harkonnen that he would do is going to be less this sort of like giggling, spinning blimp that we saw in David Lynch, and a more sort of focused.
Yes,
I'll
give you all that. I'll give you all that. That's true.
He does menacing better than almost anybody.
I think he would be a Harkonnen to be dealt with. And
okay. My turn.
All right, Dan.
So I really like the D'Onofrio. That's a good idea. The only thing missing in that for me is the Baron is gay, for better or worse, and I want a gay actor in that role.
Okay.
And I mean, it's not just about representation, but because there is an otherness. I mean, it may be moot to talk about otherness in a role like Baron Harkonnen because he's just such a ridiculous over-the-top monster.
Stereotype of an archetype.
I mean, it's like I really want the otherness to come across in my Nosferatu. Is it, gilding the lily? So, but I think there is a gay aesthetic which is so important to Baron Harkonnen, and it's just the idea of what he appreciates and what he's gone through and his whole biography and who he knows and how he knows them. And that's why, for me, it has to be Guy Branum.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know Guy Branum, or they know him as sort of the arch host of game shows like Talk Show, The Game Show. Or what else did he do?
He was in the Mindy Project.
In the Mindy Project. He's been a writer for so many things. I know him personally. I also know him from his stand-up. He's got and this might explain my choice of him for the role. He's got a piece in his stand-up routine where he talks about careers that people might have had if they didn't do what they currently do. And so one of the things he picks for himself, if he hadn't been a stand-up comedian, if he hadn't been a comedy writer, he would have picked Renaissance Pope. As he says, I would have nailed that shit.
Okay.
I won't do the bit for you because I can't be as funny as he is, but you're like, oh my God, that is so completely you. And there is an aspect, because you remember, as monstrous as Baron Harkonnen is, he is a baron. There is a huge royalty system here. And I think there is a certain species of gay man who gets that sort of unofficial royalty.
I can see that. Yeah.
The whole house system as part of the drag universe that is so important. And Branum gets that, and it's important to the character. And there is so much about the forms of royalty and the forms of Canly in Dune. So I really love this idea of Branum coming in as this person that you do not like. He would be the Renaissance Pope, the person like you can't possibly be the head of the church. Look what you look like. Look what you sound like. Look what you feel like. You can't possibly be the head of a religious organization that purports to have love and joy at its center. That's who I want as my Baron Harkonnen.
I think that's a really compelling argument. And I think that of most of the, bevy of straight male directors in Hollywood, almost none of them, some of them, but almost none of them would have the insight to be able to think that way.
Nope.
And I think you're right, by the way.
But nobody's going to think that way.
But none of the, and I do actually like Denis Villeneuve, or however his name's pronounced. I think he's a very, very good director, if not a great director. I don't think he's necessarily capable of thinking that way about a character like that.
Yeah. No.
I don't think it, and that's a shame. It's a shame because there is a really, really interesting way for that to have come out if that had been the case.
Yeah.
But Stellan Skarsgård, he'll probably do a very good job.
He'll be perfectly fine.
I'm already very tired of Timothée Chalamet, though.
Me too. I'll tell you, I haven't seen a single goddamn thing he's been in, and I'm already tired of him.
He's supposed to be
so young.
That's why they cast him.
I'm sure.
Do you know how old Paul Atreides is?
No, I have no idea.
He's 15.
Oh, Kyle MacLachlan was not, so I have a very different perspective.
Yeah, no, the character's very young, just on the verge of adolescence. Like this is his sexual awakening.
He really likes worms.
No, you've not read the books, have you?
I made it like 160 pages into the book and then realized I haven't enjoyed a single page of this.
Okay, so you're just
stopped.
bad and wrong, Don.
Okay. Well, anyway, dear listener, please let us know at the end of all of this who you think would be good in these roles, because I'm curious. I think some of these I stand by, and then I don't know. I think it could be very fun to imagine these roles in others in different ways. Which, do we have a tip? I don't think we do.
I don't check out the Nevers and see Nick Frost. Also, Why Women Kill, the season 2.
Oh yes,
he's in and is wonderful.
Season 2, he's in that. He's brilliant.
Nice.
We do have a bit today.
Yes.
Did everyone do their homework?
I did.
I did a
Excellent.
bit of homework.
Today's bit.
I did enough that I can think it through while you guys are going.
Since we're talking about fat characters in movies today, we figured there's so many movies where there are no fat characters, where maybe that movie could have been vastly improved or made a very different statement by including a fat character. So today, each of us have brought in a different movie that we're going to discuss how adding a fat character might have changed it, or what we would have seen with a fat character in a certain movie. So since it's my idea, I'll lead us off. I'm just gonna be a little blatant with mine, and just say, like, if the X-Men movies, I think would have been changed radically if Rogue was a fat character.
Oh,
that's genius.
good.
That's genius.
That's good.
Because
So for people who aren't familiar,
Oh God, yes.
Rogue is a character that her power is to touch someone and take everything that they are into herself, their abilities, their thoughts, their memories. And that power comes between her and everyone else.
and initially it's against her. It's out of her control.
It's out of her control. She has no way to control it. I don't think in the movies she ever learns how to control it.
I think you're right,
so.
Don.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it becomes this wall that she builds between herself and other people.
Well, because she literally can't touch someone without harming them.
Yeah.
But it becomes everything to her. It consumes her life.
Yeah.
And she puts it between her
And she has to
everyone
cover
else.
herself. She has to physically cover, because it's skin touch. Like she can have gloves on, and to that end, she has to completely like cover her body, her hands, like everything. She has to basically hide.
And in a franchise that talks about being the other and how it feels to be ostracized and how it feels to be cast out, it's weird to me that the only fat character we ever see is the Blob, which is just another sort of caricature of fat people.
It doesn't even rise to the level of character.
Yeah. So if Rogue was a fat character, I feel like the inclusiveness towards fat people, that everything we've described in that character is the way I feel like I know I as a fat man have felt
It's genius.
in my life.
It's really good.
And how much more powerful would a love story be if someone that she didn't believe would be attracted to her worked that much more to get through to her?
Yep.
Like that would blow my mind.
Yep.
Yeah, that it's not just, well, she's the pretty girl, so of course I want to have sex with her. Oh wait,
Right.
Oh wait, I can't.
Oh, but no, but we can't have physical, like, that's it. I think it's already a good, a good story, but I think this is like so much better.
No, that's good, Don.
So
I
much
think that'd be
better.
an improvement.
That'd be so compelling. You could do a whole, you could and should do a whole movie about that. We should write that.
So a movie immediately popped into my head for this. That movie is The Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I think I think it could
That's a good
be
one.
amazing either if you replaced Anne Hathaway or Emily Blunt. And I think it would be two. I think it would be either way. They would be completely different, but I like the dynamic of, Andy as a fat girl trying to bust in and trying to be seen and trying to seem competent, or the character of Emily suddenly having this, thin girl kind of come in and is just upstaging her, and she works so hard and she's so passionate about this industry.
I like that version.
I like that version, and I would also want the movie to be rewritten where she's the lead.
Yeah.
That's the movie I would want to watch.
And that idea of like how, the telling the Anne Hathaway character, how dare you not care about this? How dare you not care? How dare you have so
It's
much
that
privilege?
pretty privilege,
How
exactly.
dare you have so much privilege that you don't even need to care about this?
yeah. Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
I think that's the version, but it would have to be like rewritten, reinterpreted, I guess.
Yeah, but I think there's teeth there. That's good.
I like it.
That's very compelling.
Michael.
All right, so mine, I bounced around on a few ideas, but the one I landed on was The Matrix and Neo. And the reason why is because, like, once you sort of get pulled out of the Matrix, like, I think every representation of a person outside of the Matrix looks almost exactly the same as they do in the Matrix. Like, it's sort of like how you imagine yourself. But the reason why I like this is if Neo were fat, like, the whole point of being in the Matrix is that you can do whatever you imagine yourself to be able to do.
If you're Neo.
If you're Neo. And then even if you're not, you can still push the boundaries beyond, what we would consider to be real or physically possible. And I really like the idea of a fat Neo where his journey isn't just, you're the chosen one, it's you are capable of anything. Mm-hmm. Coming from a life, the normal life, where that is absolutely the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a more compelling version of that journey.
I see that.
Yeah. And then also the experience of having to give that up when you leave the Matrix. And like, not necessarily all of it, but just some of the perception things that you can overcome in the Matrix easily because you're the one, you have to work at it differently outside the Matrix.
Do you see him being initially, like, movie one, scene one, is he fat in both worlds? Or
I think so. Mm-hmm. I think he's fat in both worlds. And I batted around the idea of like, because you don't really see them. I don't think they play with the idea of like looking different in and out of the Matrix at all. Besides
except for wardrobe, yeah.
Besides haircut and wardrobe. So they don't do that. And I kind of wondered if that was like a rule of the universe or something. And I was like, I think it is more compelling if he's fat in and out of, and that doesn't change. And it's more just it's like a contemplation on what is your power. Like, what is your power, and does it matter if you're not in the Matrix doing superhuman things?
Yeah, and do you choose to be thin in the Matrix if you can be?
If you could, if you could just make yourself exactly, and you could explore all of that stuff. Yeah. And I think that would be interesting.
That's interesting. Well, that kind of dovetails into my premise / quandary. Mm-hmm. So you guys know the movie world so much better than I do, so I want some help.
Okay.
So here's what I want. Kind of like in the vein of what Michael was talking about. What I was thinking about was like early James Bond. So before we get to like Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise falling off of mesas, before that, you just have Sean Connery with a cool car and a handsome gun.
And a hairy chest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose. Whatever.
Oh, he does.
He does. But
or
whatever.
Yeah.
Funnily, I never really thought much about that. But you have Sean Connery in like Dr. No or Goldfinger, where, the stunts are pretty low key. So it's not, he doesn't have to be an astronaut too. Mm-hmm. And what I was thinking is I want a fat character in the realm of something like James Bond, where almost his superpower or the reason he is so valuable to the Enterprise is because he is constantly never mistaken for the hero. He couldn't be the spy, and he couldn't be competent, and he couldn't be any of these things that we expect James Bond to be, which is exactly what allows him to succeed on every single mission because of people's constant underestimation of him.
This is Spy, isn't it?
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. And then I thought, okay, but I want it to be, and then I thought of like, but is there a superhero aspect to it? Like, do we go to the X-Men or X-Men-ish universe where there's superpowers? But I was thinking something in the vein of Tinker Tailor's Soldier Spy. Where but being able to do these phenomenal things. And maybe that is Spy, because I haven't seen that movie.
You haven't seen Spy?
I haven't seen Spy.
With Melissa McCarthy?
I haven't.
Oh, you should watch that.
So maybe I just picked Spy.
Is that
you did just make Spy?
Is that I'm trying to remember.
She's an analyst for James Bond, basically.
Right.
And he's the super spy, but she's got all the skill set, but no one will let her out of the office. Yeah. So when she finally gets to go out of the office, she's very competent.
Well, but I think the twist, and what I'm trying to remember is like what Dan's saying is like everyone on the outside underestimates them, and that is that is played to their advantage. That's the point. And I think in her case, everyone underestimates her, but she still overcomes it in the traditional spy way of like being a badass.
I'm trying to think of, for example, this is a trope that we see often in movies where you have the pretty girl who, I mean, a lot of Alias works this way, where you have the pretty girl who is taken at face value for just being pretty, you know, but she's a karate expert. Or this pretty girl, but she uses that to wrap men around her finger and she can get what she needs. And it's sort of that idea. I can't think of a really good.
So this popped into my head, and what about Catch Me If You Can?
Oh.
And it's almost the inverse where it's like, it's not Leonardo DiCaprio, but it's just that he is almost invisible to people.
Because
and they're
he's
just
the fat kid.
Yeah. And people aren't paying that much attention to him.
Bingo.
I could see that.
Bingo. That's my movie. Catch Me As You Can. Catch Me If You Can. Yeah, that would be because,
And then because the porn parody is easy. You just make the Tom Hanks character an actual chaser.
well, which has problems if he's 15. But
Well, what are your ideas?
Yeah,
listener?
there's a lot of stuff. I'm curious. I'm sure based on the response to the Hulk.
I
pitches,
think we'll get some good.
I think we'll get some.
Where
interesting-
could they go to give us their responses, Trevor?
I'm glad you asked. We're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there.
5 stars, no less.
Yes, 5 stars. Write us reviews on Apple Podcasts. And
5 stars, no less.
And Podchaser. See the articles we talked about at www.bigfatgaypod.com.
Yay.
Maybe you're at home about to watch one of these movies we talked about.
Oh, God.
But the good versions.
our versions.
Our version.
Yeah. And you're going to turn it on, but then a hat flies and knocks the remote out of your hand. And it's
I think it knocks the hand out of your hand.
And it's Jared Leto.
it's Jared Leto in a fat suit, his odd job, because everything's terrible.
Because that's what he got. That's what he got going on. Watch out.